This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Got great ideas, but no idea how to build a website? Get Bluehost. Their AI design tool creates high-quality WordPress sites super fast. Whether you're a blogger, influencer, or launching a side hustle, Bluehost helps boost your growth with built-in marketing and e-commerce tools. Upgrade to cloud to get 100% uptime and 24/7 security to stay online all the time. Why wait? You've got the vision. Make it real. Visit Bluehost.com to get started.
Welcome back live to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess, the podcast edition. You know, tonight we're talking about perspectives. We're talking about what it means to have a certain perspective. You know, I was thinking the other day, about how, people say, you got to be cultured. You got to have culture. You got to be cultured. And is it really a cultured perspective that we're talking about? What about a real perspective? A real perspective. But I think the word real is overused and people don't really know what real means anymore. So then I dug a little bit deeper, I dug further, and I thought about, what about the authentic perspective? The authentic perspective. And I really like that, but I think people get confused with what authentic means. And so I wanted to back it up a little bit. I wanted to back it up because I wanted to explain what that means. So by being, B-E-I-N-G, by being in the present moment, you are authentic. Meaning that, let's talk about the present perspective, right? Because if we're in the present moment, we can be authentic. Because you can't be authentic when you're living in the past, and you can't be authentic when you're daydreaming about the future. You can only be authentic when you're in the now and appreciating being present. Because as they say, it's the present day, and if you think about it, that means that every day is a gift, because a present means a gift. I give you a present. It's the same as I give you a gift, right? So every day is a present. And when we live in the present, we give ourselves a present. So let's talk tonight about the present perspective. The show tonight is dedicated to helping all listeners who want to develop and cultivate their present perspective. And I want to talk about what happened last night. Because it really does put it in perspective. I was leaving the studio late last night, and on the way home, I stopped at the grocery store. I stopped at Whole Foods to get some dinner. And I knew I was running kind of late for the family. So as I took off, and I went down one street, took another street, and I'm about to take a left at this major intersection. And as I finally take a left, a lady kind of jumps out from the sidewalk into the street in front of my car. And I stopped. I stopped right then, and I looked around, and I kind of looked at her to see if she was going to continue to walk or if she had made a decision on what she wanted to do. And I didn't get angry. I didn't get upset. I didn't beat my horn. But I knew there was another lane of traffic that's next to me. I had taken the left into the right lane. And I knew that if she wasn't careful, somebody would actually probably hit her turning in on the left lane. And I kind of motioned at her, and she decided, yeah, it was probably a better idea to go back to the sidewalk and wait for the crosswalk, wait for the light to turn so she could actually walk legitimately. To most people would think that was going out of their way, all this stuff. I thought, wow, that was kind of wild. Why was she walking? Why was she jumping out in the street? Within a few seconds, I'm about to get to where another stop sign and where another intersection occurs. And an SUV comes flying through that intersection, curving around me at about 35 miles an hour and never stops at the stop sign. Yes. Had I not stopped for the lady, had I start beeping my horn and cursing her out, had I run around, had I sped around her as fast as possible, leaving her in the dust, I would have been T-boned by the SUV that ran the stop sign at 35 miles an hour. I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now. And I realized that unless you're really present, you wouldn't have the observation capability of realizing what that means, as well as the compassion component. When we are present, we are able to understand other people's plights. We're able to be there for people because guess what? We're present. We're there. We're not so busy in our own minds trying to figure out who we are and what we offer and what are we going to do with ourselves. Instead, we see everything as an opportunity. And so tonight I want to talk about that, about being conscious, about doing the right thing, about thinking and acting for others' benefit, about how ultimately, with all those things coming together, good things ultimately come to you. So let's talk about random acts, right? Let's talk about random acts tonight on the Perspectives podcast. Let's talk about random acts. Her jumping out in the middle of the street at night in the dark, that to me is a random act. It's something that normally would cause me to freak out a little bit, right? In the past, when I wasn't totally on purpose, when I wasn't totally present and I was in my mind, what would have happened? Picture this. You got all these ideas, all these thoughts in your head. You got all this.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Rose is your name, but when you poop it sure don't smell like roses. Your number 2 burns the hair in my nose, but we fought hand in paw. Now your poop don't stink at all. Now that the air is clear, I'll treasure your front and rear, my sweet Rose.
Instantly neutralize poop stink with Poop Fighter from World's Best Cat Litter for the world's best cat.
Stress on you, you're thinking about this and that. She jumps out, you don't see her to the last minute, you literally put on the brakes, and you look at her, and the first thing you do is beep, 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 beep. The next thing you're out, you're probably cursing and screaming out some curse words. And that's what happens when we're not in the present moment, because we're not seeing it, and it frightens us. Because we're kind of too late to the game, we're showing up late. We're showing up late, and when you show up late and you're not paying attention, what happens? Things happen, and it scares the crap out of you. So when you're paying attention and you're focusing, right? Things aren't that bad. Things aren't that bad. And it's cool because you actually see things for kind of how they happen. So it almost becomes like a game replay, like the replay, of the game where they're showing, so-and-so made, ran 80 yards to make this catch in the end zone, and it's his second, it's his second deal all year. He's been on the bench, and, we haven't seen this kid, but he's going to be the next thing to slice bread. Well, when you're looking at that playback, you're seeing how everything happened, right? You see how he caught the ball. You see how he ran around some defenders. You see how he jumped over something. You see how he kind of sashayed back and forth and maybe went backwards and went forwards to get into the end zone, right? But on the actual play, if you were in the stadium, think about everything that's going down. You're probably sitting next to a friend that's telling you something. Somebody's on the phone. You might be holding your phone. You might be looking at something. Somebody's like, popcorn, 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 cold beer. And you're like, oh, I could really use a beer right now. That sounds ultimately good, And all of a sudden you hear people, whoa, oh my God, I can't believe they just did this. Oh my God, woo! And you're like, oh, yay, yeah, woo! And you're just hoping that it's your team. You're hoping you're not like the idiot applauding the other team. And I've done that before. Because I wasn't paying attention. So think about it. Most of the time in life, we're not living in the present purpose, right? We're not living in the present perspective. What do? We're in the stadium, in the stands, and when we hear the crowd cheering, we look up. But when you're in the present purpose, present moment, you see everything like in a slow-mo playback. You're aware of the surroundings. You're aware of the conditions. You see exactly how the ball was snapped. You see how it was caught. And it's not just a blur. And I figure that a lot of times when we have a lot of things on our mind, it takes us out of the present perspective. And it moves us into like a holding tank. Okay, so you're not in the past, you're not in the future, you're not in the present. You're kind of on the sidelines. And unfortunately, when you're on the sidelines, you stop living. You're no longer advancing. You're just kind of maintaining. You're surviving. You're breathing. But you're not really moving towards something. And so when you think about these random acts, you think about them, instead of freaking out at the last minute when that lady runs out into the street, you go, oh my God. Instead of that, when you're present, you see it. Because you're observant, it didn't scare you. But on top of that, because you're present, you actually have compassion. Now, you don't really know why she jumped out, and some of you might think it's foolish, but yet the last thing you want is something happening to her on your watch. You don't know her, but God's sakes, you're going to make something, nothing happens to her. And so you take your time. And then you also go back into the present moment again. Think about it. Yes, I'm late. But am I theoretically running late? I'm not running late for life. Yes, I might have said I might have been home a little earlier. But what's a few minutes? And am I going to just race through that time from work to home? No. I'm actually going to be present on my way home. I'm going to make it a adventure. I'm going to learn. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be entertaining. I'm going to entertain myself on the way home. Because how do I know that time in the car is not going to be a fabulous time? And how do I know that the time home is going to be worth racing home for? Do you see what I'm saying? For example, okay, when I was younger, women do this all the time. Okay, we have a date. The date gets set on Sunday night. You get a date on Friday night. And you think about that date from Sunday night to Friday. What you're going to wear. Where you're going to go. How great it's going to be. And what ultimately happens? It's either not that great or it gets canceled. And you've been waiting on this all week for something that doesn't actually come to fruition. So let's take that same role and that same thought process into last night's drive home from the studio. Okay. In car. Driving. For a split second, I think about how I'm late, but then I realize I'm in the present moment, so it doesn't really matter. So I just need to calm down and just drive and be part of the road, part of the car, part of life's adventure. Take a left. Lady jumps out in front of my car. I stop. And I kind of already knew she was because
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
I was very observant because I'd already seen her as I was making my left turn. I didn't have a lot on my mind. I've been living clean, so there was not a lot of anger, stress, depression, anything like that. Clean living really does help you out. It takes the burden off you. You're not looking over your shoulder, all that good stuff. And I wait for her. And I kind of figured for a split second, at first I'm like, man, this sucks. What's wrong with this lady? She needs to get her head out of her ass. But then all of a sudden I went back into my present purpose and my present perspective and went, you know what? There's got to be a reason for this. And even if there's not, maybe I was just the one that was going to stop. Okay? After I kind of looked at her and we examined the situation and she realized that I had stopped to try to help, but that nobody else was, she went back and she kind of waved. At that point in time, I slowly meandered on. At that time, a car comes swirling around from an intersection. Had I been there 2 seconds earlier, they would have T-boned me. Okay? They had not stopped. And at least I was far enough away that when I saw them run it, I was not going to get hit. And nobody else got hit for that matter. It was wild. There was like me, and that's it. And I had that direction and that lag time because of the lady that everything worked out. So think about it. When you put all this stuff together, that random act of her walking out saved me, possibly saved her, but changed the situation. But the real thing that changed the situation is the way that I behaved and how I acted. Had I gotten so angry, beat my horn, and swerved around her, I probably would have been in the hospital. Or I certainly would have been out there on the street waiting for the police and my car to be towed somewhere. That would have been awful. And then I would have felt really bad, too, because, man, I mean, like, this is bad. Like, I didn't help her out, and then look what happened karmatically. That could have been a karma-type situation, too. I think a lot of times with these random acts, right, we either freak out or we have a tendency of labeling them. Right? So, for example, in this situation, had you not freaked out, you would have just labeled it as bad, problematic. What the heck is wrong with her? Is she drunk? Is she stoned? Like, does she know English? I mean, like, all these things would have gone in your mind labeling someone for the fact that they jumped out in front of your car. And I've realized that the best thing to do nowadays is to look and observe because it's amazing what we learn. It's amazing what we can learn in life when we look and observe. You know, it puts us in a place of learning instead of what? Judging, right? You're either learning or you're judging. What else can you do? You're learning, you're judging, you're drinking, or you're smoking. So, and you can do all of that except for learning and judging. So learning and judging are separate. Every time I learn, I can't judge. So think about it. When was the last time you learned anything where you were judging something? Never. Give me an example. Please write comments on that if you remember majorly learning something and you were judging it at the same time. If you figured out that, I want to hear from you. However, I don't think that you can learn and judge. You can't really learn from somebody when you're judging them in a negative way, right? Okay? Seriously. Now, yes, you can judge positively, I guess, to some degree. You could put them on a pedestal, and then maybe, yes, you could somehow or not learn based on the fact that they are God's gift to the universe, and what they have to say is more important than sliced bread. However, what I'm saying is a negative judgment, okay? Had you had been judged her in a positive light, the lady that jumped out in front of my car, you would have thought she was Cleopatra or some sort of saint, and definitely would have pulled over, opened your car door, and asked her to get in the car and see if she needed a ride somewhere. So we're looking at judgment in a negative type connotation when we talk about it on tonight's show. So when we are able to look and observe at a situation in a judgment-free way, in the present perspective, it puts us in a place of learning. Every minute then, at that point in time, changes from a burden to an opportunity to actually learn something. It's like a new option's been given you, like a new life lesson, like a new, leg up, And it's awesome because all of a sudden you're getting something that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get had you not opened up your mind and allowed for this present perspective. Right now I want to talk about judgment. So we've been talking about this a little bit, but I want to go further into talking about how judgment really takes us out of living. Yeah, you heard me. Judgment takes us out of living because you know why? Let's talk about gossip first. I know a lot of women and a lot of men. It's not just a women's world of gossip who like to gossip. And the last time you gossiped, did you really think about how you felt? Because I did. I thought about how I felt. Gossip puts me on the sidelines. It puts me on the sidelines. And it actually puts you on the sidelines too. And let me explain. The first time I noticed this was several years back. I was on the phone with a friend of mine who has a tendency of, picking the wrong people to hang out with. Choosing like the derelicts of the world to hang out with. And I don't mean this in a judgmental way. I just mean that when everybody else tells you to be wary, when everybody else tells you that they don't allow their own cousin or their own brother to stay with them anymore because they use them and they spend all their money, it's probably a red flag that they're going to do this to you. And I'm not being a jerk about it, but the thing is, when somebody's burned all their bridges, that's when somebody you barely know asks you if they can stay with you. I recently had that happen the other day, and I've known this person years ago, but I haven't actually seen them in over 15 years, and I love them as a person, but I don't know what's going on. And it's kind of interesting because it's like you got to really watch these friendships. However, let's get past that. My friend on the phone, had let somebody stay at her house. And that person stayed and stayed and stayed and stayed until finally my friend gets on the phone and starts telling me about all the bad things that's happened. Well, they borrowed some money. And they used my car and they ran into something. And it's all this stuff. And then did you know what they did back then and 2 years ago? And all this stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm in this whole conversation. And I look up at the clock and I realize an entire hour. An hour of my life that I could never get back has gone. 1 hour. A solid 60 minutes or more had gone away. And I've been talking about some crazy person that's sleeping in my friend's guest room that shouldn't have been there in the first place. And I've wasted this time. And so I get off the phone and I kind of let it go. And then about 2 weeks later, she calls me and I get kind of sucked in again. And all of a sudden, this time it felt weird. It felt weird because all of a sudden it was like I wasn't living anymore. Like it felt like all my energy had been sucked away. And I was just kind of like holding on the phone as a lifeline. It felt like my life had come to a stop, a halt. And that when I was ready, I could turn the ignition back on and we could go one way or another. And I realized that gossip puts us on the sidelines. It takes us out of the game. And you're too busy talking about whoever you're talking about that you're not asking the coach to put me back in the game. You don't even realize you're out of the game. But you've been benched. And you know what? You benched yourself. You put yourself on the bench because you're too busy talking about so-and-so's life. I mean, think about it. It's like when you get ingrained to the reality shows and you start watching those, watching the boob tube, and it's like all of a sudden you realize you've lost 4 hours of your life that you can never get back, and you've watched people argue, fuss, and fight for the last 4 hours because you're watching a marathon of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Interesting. And I'm not downplaying the fact that sometimes people might like that because it might take the edge off, but anytime I've tried to watch that show, it has really done a job on my stress level. It's done a total job on my stress level. Like I feel like stressed out. I feel like kind of like my heart palpitating because there's a lot of people arguing, fussing, and fighting, and I don't need that in my life. I don't need that. I'm a therapist. I'm a family and marriage counselor. I'm also a life coach. I get to hear people's real issues all the time. But, when I watch stuff, I like to watch stuff that actually, kind of builds me up or makes me feel good. I really love those shows where people like buying like property in Alaska or, I don't know, I really like that Alaska property show. I don't know why, but it's something I really like it. Anyway, so let's talk more about judgment. So you got personal judgment. The next thing besides gossip, because we like to gossip about other people. Gossip, people who need gossip. Yeah, so we like to gossip about other people, right? But what about personal judgment? It puts you in the seat of the judge, jury, and executioner. You are your personal judge. And it's crazy because when we judge ourselves, we really do a major disservice to ourselves. And we can be absolutely brutal. We can be so brutal. I mean, I've done it before where I can just take myself down. Wham, bam, bam, bam. I'm like, oh, God, I can't get up. I might as well not even leave the house. Nothing's good going to come out of it. I'll screw it up anyway. Everything that I'm trying to make and all my fruit, nothing's coming to fruition. I might as well just go back to bed. Personal judgment can scare the crap out of us, can upset us, and definitely disappoints. And the thing is that it kind of takes us out of our own game on our own. Like, we actually take our own self out. You know what I mean? We take our own self out. It's like, man, we didn't even need anybody to help out with that. We did it on our own. We figured out our Achilles heel and we just snapped it. We don't need anybody. We don't need any haters. We got ourselves, man. And personal judgment really takes us out of living our life. Because we're too busy freaking out about the things that we think about ourselves that are negative and uncool. I mean, when we judge ourselves harsh. And the sad thing is that for the most part, most of us will eventually realize it because over time and with age has wisdom. And with wisdom, the acknowledgement and the issue and the understanding that we really did judge ourselves pretty hard and why. And I think that the majority of people, when they hit 50 or 60, I think the majority age, the master age is like 58. When I think the majority, at least 70%, figure out, why was I freaking out so much? Why was I my worst enemy? Why did I judge myself on every single thing? Why was I so tough on my looks? And why was I so tough on my education? And why was I so tough on everything I said and did? Because in the end, all it did was I personally beat up on myself. And so personal judgment takes us out of living because you know what it just does. Because it takes all the fun out of life. It takes all the fun out of life, and it just kind of takes away from what we're here for. We're supposed to embrace ourselves, to embrace our unique qualities. And I understand. So let's go back a little bit as a kid. When I was a kid in elementary school, I'm not kidding you when I say this, my voice was almost exactly the same in elementary school. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And all my friends had that really cute, high-pitched, bubbly voice that I just loved. I just loved it because it had this high-pitched voice, and it was so cute, and it was so bubbly, and so, like, cheerleader-ish, and I just wanted it so bad, okay? And I didn't have it. There was no way I had it. And so I would practice to try to raise my voice. Because my mother was a vocal teacher for a while, and she was a choir teacher. And I never wanted to take choir lessons from her, though, because she's my mom. Golly. Not because I don't like her, she's just my mom. Who wants to take lessons from your parents? Anyway, she had raised her voice to a middle C when she was a voice major in college. And I tried to raise my voice. I was learning how to play the piano and learning how to play the violin. Anyway, I don't think I was like really working toward it. And I'm glad I didn't now. I mean, my God, I'm really glad I didn't. But at the time, I surely wanted that high-pitched, bubbly voice. And I remember in 5th grade thinking that my voice was higher, that I had really miraculously done some sort of miracle. And I was going to call my friends, and they wouldn't know who it was, because my voice would be so high compared to what it is now. And so I called my friend Melinda, and I remember I called Melinda up because I was going to ask Melinda and a few of my other friends to come over to the house for a swim party. And so I called, and I was like, "Hi, Melinda, it's Ashley." I know, I kind of sound like Kermit on that. Anyway, I was like, "Hi, Melinda. Hey, how's it going?" That's what it was, because I didn't say when I was like, "How's it going?" And she was like, "Hey, Ashley." And I was like, "Oh, darn it. You know, that sucks." And I was like, "How did you know it was me?" And she's like, "What do you mean, how did I not know it was you?" And I was like, "My voice." And she goes, "Yeah." I was like, I was trying to raise it. She was like, "Oh, that was a good job, Ashley. You're trying. Yeah, what's going on?" I was like, "You want to come over?" She's like, "Sure." Well, I tried it on a few other people. Same. And all the way through middle school, nobody really made fun of me. I mean, nobody really made fun of me, really, but I think it was my personal judgment on myself that I wasn't like everybody else. And, when you're young, you just kind of want to be like everybody else. And a lot of adults, for that matter, want to be like everybody else, too. That's why we live up to try to be like the Joneses or the Smiths or the Adams or whoever hell you want to be like. You want to be just like them. You want to have a house like them. You want to have cars like them. You want to have a wife that gets collagen and Botox like their wife. You want to have kids. One kid that's obviously a football player and is going to get a football scholarship, and the other kid, definitely not gay, straight, and is going to be a businessman. Everybody wants to have that. A lot of people, not everybody. That's one of those extremes. But a lot of people out there want to follow the Joneses. And so it's like they never grow up from middle school. I mean, heck, I don't care if my son is a doll maker. You know what I mean? I'm happy that he's unique. And I'm happy he's happy doing what he wants to do. However, let's go back to my voice. So in college, it wasn't until college, okay, where I got my first compliment. The first compliment on my voice. The first time. And when they were complimenting me, it was a guy that my big sister in sorority was dating. And when he gave me this compliment, I did not know how to react. I actually got quiet because I thought he was just really seriously making fun of me. And it was that personal judgment coupled with the unknown that really just set me off. And I just got quiet. And I just kind of sat there and I almost cried. Like, I almost started crying. This was my freshman year of college. I almost started crying. And the guy looks at me and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I was like, yeah, that was funny. And he goes, what was funny? And I go, "Oh, I know my voice is low. I get it. You know, it's something I've dealt with my whole life. And, you know, I've always tried to raise it, and, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, it's funny. That was a funny joke. That was funny." And he's like, "I don't understand what you're talking about." And I was like, "I know you made a joke about my voice, and that's cool. And I know." And he's like, "Quite the contrary. Actually, I kind of just hit on you. I think your voice is the sexiest voice I've ever heard." And he said, "And if I wasn't dating your friend and you weren't so young, I would definitely consider going out with you. And I would hope that you would go out with me." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I think my cheeks must have turned really red, and so did my face. And I said, "Well, yeah, I would. I mean, obviously you're dating my best friend, but yeah, if you weren't and you were single and I was single, totally." And I was like, "You know, you're the first." And he goes, "What?" And as I said, as the words were coming out of my mouth that you were the first person that's ever said that, he was like, "I cannot believe that." He's like, "I can't believe that." And I said, "No, my whole life, no one's ever complimented me." And I took a step back and I started thinking about that. But then also I started thinking about, why do I need someone else to compliment me? But it felt good. It felt good, but that personal judgment that I had been carrying along for so long had really done a number on me because I had allowed it to. And it's like, you know, I've been on the radio. I've been in terrestrial radio for almost 4 years. And the voice is great. But it took me to really fully embrace it about 2 or 3 years ago. About 2 years ago, really. And that was when I fully embraced me as a person, as a whole person. And I go to schools now, elementary schools, for career days a lot. And I'm actually going to be principal of the day for an elementary school next week. I'm so stoked about it. A whole day. I'm the principal. The Principal Burgess. Yeah. I get to do announcements, go to classes, and meet the kids, and do lunch, and I'm going to get there bright and early at 7 a.m. And anyway, so what I do a lot, and I want to do this with the kids this time too, is I want to do an assembly while I'm the principal for a day. And I would love to have every kid, if possible, from the whole elementary school. I think there's like, I don't know. I don't know if they could actually do that. It's probably a pretty big school. But it would really be cool to get a group. And I do this a lot with career days, is I sit down with kids and the first thing I talk about is perspective and what does a perspective mean and all that kind of stuff. And it's really cool. I'll have to do a show on that as well because I get their perspective as a little kid as far as, you know, older, are they oldest? Are they the youngest? Are they the middle kid? You know, all that stuff that all creates a perspective in a child's life, right? But one of the biggest things that I talk about is that we all have a unique gift. We all have a unique gift and we might have several unique gifts, but we definitely have at least one that sets us apart from everybody else. And that unique gift is usually something that for years of your life, you will judge yourself and persecute yourself for having. And it's not until you finally come to terms with it where you can use it for good. And so what I'm saying here is that personal judgment, you got to put it aside. It does you no good, and it does nobody around you any good. When you're upset and you're not happy with yourself, people feel it. And it does nothing but take you down a notch and take you away from who you truly are. And it's like taking a drug every day that talks bad about you, makes you think bad things, and keeps you away from being yourself. If you were taking a pill like that every day, you would stop. Judgment's the same thing. And I've also figured out, too, people who actually judge themselves a lot tend to judge other people, too. It's very interesting. When I quit judging myself, I quit judging others. Because I realized how sabotaging and how lame it is. And I realized I am wasting my time. And I do not like wasting my time. Because we do have a certain amount of time on this planet. In this body. In this particular dimension. Unless you plan on coming back. However, going back to judgment. The next thing that we do in life when we judge is we like to do a lot of extreme talk. Yes, as a counselor and a therapist, I get to hear a lot of folks do extreme talk. What would that be, Ashley? Well, marriage counseling. Couple comes in, sits down on the couch, we talk. First thing that comes out of somebody's mouth, he always puts me down. On the flip side, well, she never comes home on time after work. So you got the always and the never. I'm going to put that, gosh, that's great. You know what? I'm actually going to frame that. I'm going to put the words in neon, always and never. Gosh, this is great. Behind my couch in my therapy office. It's perfect. Yes, thank you. I came up with this on the Perspectives podcast. So yes, these are these extremes that we deal with. The good or the bad. How was your day? Did you have a good day? Did you have a bad day? Did you have a good day? Did you have a bad day? What about black and white? Everything's all black and white. You see no gray. You're always so extreme. Or are you happy or sad? Happy, or sad? It's all limiting definitions for your life. Think about it. When we use these words, we use limiting definitions in our life. We limit our human experience. We limit the human experience like no other. Think about it. We just dumb it down so bad. I mean, golly, it's just like we just dumb it down. We take all the finesse, all the essence, all the gratitude, all the compassion, all the present right out of it, and we homogenize it down to, well, was it a good day or was it a bad day? Well, it's always or never with us. We can't seem to get our shit together. That is a judgment. Because when we actually start living present purpose, we detach from those types of judgments and we see all the structure, the molecular structure surrounding things. We're able to see people for their essence. We can see the good, the bad, the indifferent, the compassion, the narcissism, the love, the anger. There's all these balances that we can begin to see in a circumference of life when we allow ourselves to take off the shades of extremes. It opens up a whole nother, like a whole new world. It opens up a whole new world for us to see. I mean, seriously. Think about it. And it's funny because when people ask me questions like good, bad, and different, I always just go, man, I don't even know what that is anymore. Because you know what? There is no real good and bad. There's all this in between. It's like defining your life as good or bad, always or never, is kind of like only defining your life on the high life scenarios, i.e., graduating high school, graduating college, having a child, buying a car, buying a house, winning the lottery. The winning the lottery is actually pretty damn good. But anyway, okay, so let's just take the other ones, for example. Everything but winning the lottery. We're going to actually table that for right now, and hopefully we'll do that here on an upcoming podcast. However, okay, so those big things, those big life things, right? So what happens is a lot of people out there only see their life as the sum of those life things. They don't see the in-betweens. The in-betweenies. The in-betweenies, to me, are the essence of life. It's the weave of life that we create. And the in-betweenies, when seen in the proper light, are magnificent with the present purpose. You can see the intricacies of your life, the conscious, the compassion, how your heart links to other hearts, how you can see how you can connect with people by being honest, deliberate, authentic, and how once you enter that present moment and you stay there, it's like sometimes time can stand still for you. No longer do you sit there and go, wow, this day just went by so fast, I blinked an eye. These days are just all rolling together. It's interesting how when we get in that present moment, we experience things that we never even knew were an option. Going back to that story, had I not been compassionate, been in the present moment, stopped for that lady, watched out for her safety, if I wouldn't have done all that, my safety could have been harmed and probably would have. And it's not about all that. It's about the fact that I was in the present and I knew that what I had to do was to stop, to not get angry, and to be sure that the lady was okay. And when we're able to see those in the in-betweenies, we're able to realize why we're here on this earth in this lifetime and what we are here to learn. And we also realize that every minute of every day, of every hour, of every week, of every year is a learning experience that we can take with us, that we can learn. We can choose to learn or we can choose not to learn. We can choose to put the earmuffs on or we can turn it up, THX, Dolby Digital Sound, and render this purpose. Last but not least, when it comes to judgment, I want to finish up tonight's podcast with talking about judging opportunity. Judging opportunity is an interesting thing because when we see something come our way, we see it as either a burden or responsibility, something we have to go out of our way for. I always like that, the out of our way. How is it ever out of our way when it's really right in our path, right? How can something be out of the way when it's right in the path? However, okay, so judgment, judging opportunity, the difference between opportunity and a burden. And I found that a lot of times opportunity is not shrouded in a big neon sign that says opportunity with gold bullion and dollar bills and $100 bills being thrown around like you're at a titty bar. No, it's like shrouded in something a little more calmer. And you know why, right? Because you have to have presence and you have to be in the present purpose to actually attain the opportunity, unless you just fall into it by sheer luck. Otherwise, the reason why it's shrouded in a certain way is to take away people who would much rather just keep on walking. And it's fun because it actually teaches you something. You can actually examine something from a distance and see it in very different ways. The same goes for when you see a friend of yours fall for a line of BS. That's too good to be true, but they're right on it. And you're like, man, this isn't going to work out. But they saw that as opportunity. However, if you were in the present moment, you saw that as bullshit. You recognized it for what it was. But they weren't in the present moment. Why? Because they were outside of the present moment, hoping, visualizing, thinking of the future. They were dispelling what they knew to really be a load of crap. because they were putting their own hope and emotion on it. And I've done it before where it's glaringly obvious, right? But I wanted it so bad to be true. And what happened? Yeah, it hurt. Because in the end, I got hurt. But what I've realized is that when we dispel judgment when it comes to opportunity, when we dispel judgment when it comes to anybody entering our life, we allow ourselves an opportunity to learn. Whether it's something that you decide later on or you decide then, well, it's not really for me, but thank you so much, have a great day. Or you go, you know what, I'd like to learn a little bit more. Whatever side of that coin, or you may choose to observe. I'd like to wait a little bit and observe. And you know what? Nobody can push your hand. Nobody can force you. It's your life. And the greatest thing about being an observer sometimes in a present moment is that you can see things, you can learn things, and you can understand. You can see why somebody might participate in something, or you can see why somebody might feel a certain way, or you can see why a certain person might be doing something in a specific manner. Either way, it cultivates an ability for you to see things clearly in a more speedy manner in the future. It allows you to be more observant, to see things, to honestly understand, for them to register, but then for you to see even a bigger colored picture. No longer is just one square colored in the coloring book on that one page. Is you start seeing the image. It's like when you have a puzzle and you see like one piece and you don't really know what it is, and you didn't like fudge and go look at the cover or anything like that. You decided you were going to do this by hand, figure it out, and you got like a couple pieces. You're like, what the heck is this? However, when the pieces start coming together, you start seeing the reasons for things. And you start realizing that some things were not meant to happen. And better yet, some things needed to happen to predicate something else to happen. And that, my dear, is the opportunity. However, if we wouldn't have observed and been in the present moment, we could have easily been taken off target. We could have followed the person that might not have had our best interests at heart, that was playing their role out that we needed to go through, instead of actually meeting the person we needed to meet, going down that road and actually associating that and figuring out the opportunity. Judgment takes us out of living. And when we're able to see ourselves and to live in the present moment, and to actually live in that present moment and see it and be it, we then move our perspective from a limited perspective into a present position perspective, where your finger is on the constant pulse, that you somewhat know what is going to happen. And it's almost like you're constantly giving a glimpse into things that are absolutely amazing. I have a great podcast for you next time, and I'm looking forward to doing this on a constant basis. So this will be a weekly podcast for right now, soon to be bi-weekly, 2 times a week. I mean, not every 2 weeks. And I look forward to it. And if you want any more information on me or want to connect with me, go to ashleyburgess.com, ashleyburgess.com, and you can also contact me. You can click on the contact page, press contact, and send me a note, and I will respond immediately. The Perspectives Podcast will be back this time in 3 shakes.